I was reading something earlier this evening about Desert Storm. I don't know why. Just one of those things of searching the internet, and then I get this file and I'm reading it, and And there was a guy, they were doing surveys on troops, psychological. They were just showing how the family life and different things that were going on with the soldiers. And they were talking about how even back then they had a discussion about going to war for oil. Well, I'm bringing this up. I spoke on this with a friend of mine earlier that it touches me that we've been at war for a long time, but we've been at war for oil for that's something relatively new within the last 20, 30 years, relatively new in the American Empire Project. And there's a person I was looking at who even back in the 90s knew that I'm not fighting for Exxon, I'm not fighting for these, I'm not, and whereas I've said it before, I think most black people, it's a black man, a well-known black comedian, I think most black people want to be accepted. And in the 90s, here you are looking at Colin Powell, Joint Chiefs of Staff. You're looking at other black members of the military. You're looking at black folks actually rising up. It was racism, but not compared to the 50s and the 60s. It wasn't the same. It wasn't like, I think back then, almost on paper, they still had some of the racist stuff. See, there's de facto and de jure. And the fact, one of them is being the law, and one of them is like accepted to be the law. In the 50s and all that, you still had, like legitimized discrimination, and it moved beyond that. That surprised me that you had people who knew that was a war we had no business fighting in as people of color. So they were talking about fighting for oil and how the war wasn't just. And this one guy, might have been a staff sergeant or something, he said that he was very angry and that he was not fighting a war for oil. I thought that was funny, and I couldn't really qualify that. I couldn't really say it properly, and I've made videos in the past that weren't really laid out in a linear fashion, and I'm getting better with that, but bear with me. That staff sergeant, or first sergeant, whatever the hell he was, he actually thinks in the American Empire that his opinion matters to Congress, to anybody. He actually thinks that. See, that's the libertarian mindset, I guess, for white people, is that I'm a white man and I'm not a criminal and I pay my taxes and I've got money, so when I say things that they have value. Whereas we as black people, we know we never had value. Even with a black president, we don't have any value. We never did. Probably never will. Not as long as these people are in the majority. That'll never happen. That's done with. You can stop that foolishness. I think that that's something that we've always known. As I said earlier, a certain hermeneutics of suspicion. The dear brother Cornel West put it. I thought about something. Give you an example. Let's say I worked security, and I kept my nose clean. And it's overseas. I didn't drink. I didn't do drugs, even on my time off. And I was always studying like new security stuff. Like I was, like I was on the cutting edge of whatever's going on and looking to see what the company's doing next, always volunteering for new stuff. And I was getting awards, and I was really good at what I did. And they said, well, you know what? I think Dynacore, the company I'm working for, is trafficking young children. And I say, well, I'm not trafficking young children. Do you think that my opinion matters? Even if I'm making $100,000 a year, folks, I'm part of working class. I know that. I'm not sure that soldier knows that. We're part of working class. We don't matter and we don't count. And I think that's something you see with Trump, something you see in the last 10 years is that we don't matter. Some Americans don't really care. But we really, we don't count at all, whatsoever. We really don't. I think that's, to me, it's laughable. Like that guy actually thinks that because he says, I'm not fighting for oil, and you're just listen, even if he was a commissioned officer, you're just some dumb grunt in a uniform running around in the mud. You're nothing. You're nobody. You're an aberration. You are but a guppy in a very big pond. You're nothing. And your opinion is of no value. And when you realize what this system is and how it's operated, you know that. But when you don't and you believe in this system, I think it's hard to understand that. So for him, he thinks that he's a part of the government. He's in the military. You're not. You're the enforcement arm of it. Yeah, you're that, but you're really nothing. And your opinion means nothing. And they'll do you like, who is that guy? Pat Tillman. And they'll murder you out there if you talk too much. I just think it's interesting, this idea rednecks have that if they... I was talking to a guy one time about that, and I was talking to him about this dude that was friends with my trainer. He's a redneck, white trash cracker. I didn't know back then that those guys, they're never going to see a point of view. When they look at history, they see white supremacy. Whereas when I look at history, I look at it as best as actions of individuals, actions of men, actions of corporations. At worst, white supremacy. When he looks at history, he sees white men building up a country. That he's seen, what's that divine, whatever it's called, all that bullshit. So I had told him about Henry Ford, a bunch of other rich white men that put money into Hitler, and how the Nazis got a bunch of Ford trucks, talked about IBM, the Hollerith machine. He's like, well, no, Henry Ford was a Christian. I'm just like, what does him being a Christian have to do with what I just said? It doesn't matter. It doesn't do with anything. Anyway, I just I had to put it out there. Peace.